Welcome to the channel, folks. I'm Andy, ElectricGeek, and in for a review today. It's one I've been really excited to cover on the channel, and that is Oppenheimer on 4K Blu Ray. If ever there was a movie destined to show off what 4K Blu Ray can do, it was Oppenheimer.
Now I am become death, the destroyer of worlds.
Thanks for sticking with us, folks. If you're hitting the channel up for the first time, I mainly cover 4K Blu Ray here. I do 4K Blu Ray reviews, unboxings, and I do live streams as well where I'll discuss physical media and have a little bit of gaming also. So if that's something you're into, then please consider subscribing and hitting us back up again in the future. But before we get into the video and audio quality of Oppenheimer, I'm just going to quickly show you the Blu Ray itself. So this is the 4K Blu Ray edition, of course, just the standard slip, because I slept on the pre-orders unfortunately and missed out on that gorgeous steelbook, which has the same kind of artwork as you can see being teased on my monitor here. But in fairness to the standard release, it does have actually quite a nice kind of soft sheen to it. A little bit of spot gloss on the titling as well, and as you can see from this little unbox, it's a 3-disc set, so you get a dedicated movie disc on 4K, and then you get the Blu-ray and also a third disc which has over 3.5 hours of special features. Now, of those 3.5 hours of special features, I've only had the time to watch the Meet the Press Q&A panel, Oppenheimer, which is actually pretty interesting because it has Christopher Nolan on it, the movie's writer and director, but it also has a panel of scientists basically, and the person who wrote the book that the movie's based on, American Prometheus. The writer's name escapes me. He co-wrote it with another author who actually passed away before the film was made, but it's really interesting. It's quite unusual because normally it would just be the actors up there kind of patting each other on the back and, you know, talking about how amazing the director is and whatnot. And there's a little bit of that because these guys aren't in show business, so you can tell they're enjoying being on the stage and being in the limelight and getting to ask Christopher Nolan questions and stuff. But it just makes for a pretty intellectual collection, shall we say, of people, and quite an interesting Q&A ultimately. I've also watched the Photochem production, which is a kind of insight into the kind of technical marvel of this film, if you like. It's been well documented. I've done a video myself, you can check it out if you want, the whole IMAX 70mm and how significant that was, and people, including myself, were travelling far and wide to watch this movie in that format. There were only 3 places in the UK. I went to Manchester, so as I say, you can check that video out if you've missed it. There'll be a link in the description for it. But this little feature kind of focuses on the director of photography and the people at Photochem and explaining the lengths they went to create 65mm film in black and white, because that hadn't been done in decades, and not for a feature-length presentation of this kind of scope and scale, this kind of budget. So they basically had to kind of completely reconfigure their factory, their laboratory, to produce this film, and they kind of talk about that, but they also talk about the painstaking work they went into trying to recreate that theatrical experience, that 70mm IMAX theatrical experience on the 4K Blu-ray. And it shows you that they actually did side-by-side comparisons, frame for frame, to try and match the colour grading exactly to the way it looked from the film prints that they were using. And even when you see it on your TV, you can see how similar they are. And having seen it in 70mm IMAX myself, I can testify just to how close and how good this 4K presentation is, but more about that shortly. Just before I start talking about the video presentation of Oppenheimer, I appreciate that it is a fairly new movie still, and some people might not have seen it, might be watching this with a view to getting the 4K but not actually seen the movie. So I'm not going to go into any spoilers or spoil the plot, although you could just Google it because it was a historical event obviously. But I'm not going to spoil the kind of narrative and how it plays out, but I will be putting some images on screen to show you the picture quality that I've captured on my Sony OLED here. So just a wee warning in case, you know, any imagery kind of spoils it for you. So it's probably going to come as absolutely no surprise that this is hands down the most fantastic 4K Blu-ray I have ever laid eyes on. It is an absolute landmark of the format. It's what this format was created for. If ever there was a movie destined to show off what 4K Blu-ray can do, it was Oppenheimer. The picture quality is out of this world. As I say, I've seen it in the Manchester Printworks. I've seen it on the best possible format on a massive screen. with the shift in IMAX aspect ratios, the 1:4:3:1, which is the tallest presentation of it you could possibly get. Now we don't get that on the 4K Blu-ray, but we do get the change in aspect ratios. So for the stuff that was filmed in IMAX 70mm, you have an aspect ratio of 1:7:8:1, so your whole screen gets taken up on your TV when you're watching it, and then when it's the regular 70mm, which is draw dropping also, you do get the black bars. But see, to be honest, I own a few movies where you have switching aspect ratios, funnily enough, Christopher Nolan ones. So just take, for example, The Dark Knight. I'm pretty sure if you're watching this channel, you've probably got The Dark Knight in 4K, or you've seen it anyway. And then you've also got Interstellar. So parts of these movies were filmed in 70mm IMAX also, but the rest was filmed in 35mm. Unlike Oppenheimer, that was filmed in 70mm, or 65, whatever you want to call it. And as much as the presentations on both those movies are stunning, especially the IMAX stuff, it is jarring when it goes back to the 35mm. Not that there's anything wrong with 35mm, but it just looks a bit poor in comparison to a format such as IMAX 70mm. That's not the case with Oppenheimer. It's so seamless, and I've got the luxury, as you'll see from the photos here, of having an OLED. So I've got a 65-inch Sony OLED A90J, and as you can see, I've painted the wall that it's mounted on a really, really dark grey. So when I switch the lights off and I'm watching my movies at night, I don't really see black bars, I just see a floating image on the wall. And I didn't even really notice the aspect ratios changing, to be honest, because the picture quality is consistent throughout. The detail is unbelievable. The depth, the IMAX and the 70mm lens is almost like 3D. There's a lot of close-ups in this movie. That was something that I think the director of photography and Christopher Nolan really wanted to push, was kind of using people's faces as almost a character, getting something from them by getting these cameras right in their face where they can pick up all the little nuances, which must be really difficult as an actor, because you've got to kind of think about even the slightest little facial movement or expression, and how that might affect the audience's interpretation of the performance. But for us sitting at home watching it, it is fantastic. It's almost like the person is right in front of you. It is almost like 3D without the glasses. Add to the fact that it's just beautifully shot, and the colour palette and the production design, you know, it's set in the 40s and into the 50s. The wardrobe department has got the outfits down to an absolute T, and this format just shows it off so beautifully. None of their work goes amiss because it's all there, captured in such amazing detail. There's no Dolby Vision on this, unfortunately. You would think something that was such a visual spectacle as this, they would just pull out all the stops and get, you know, HDR10 Plus or Dolby Vision. But to be honest, the imagery is so astounding that you're not going to be thinking about that. I certainly wasn't when I was watching it, and I'm someone who's into that and reviews 4K Blu-rays on YouTube, obviously. And it didn't bother me. So would it have been nice to have Dolby Vision? Yeah, but you don't need it, and you won't be thinking about that when you're watching it. What more can I say? This is just an absolute 5 out of 5, 10 out of 10, whatever you want to call it. It's the best picture quality I've seen on a 4K Blu-ray. Moving on to the audio, and sticking with the Christopher Nolan tradition, he doesn't seem to like object-based audio. So there's no Dolby Atmos here or DTS-X. It's just what's on all these other 4K Blu-rays or Blu-rays, and that's DTS HD 5.1. Though I'm happy to report that there was no issues at all that I experienced in understanding and hearing clearly the dialogue, because I know it's been a common complaint of Nolan's movies in the past. Probably most notably Tenet recently, where people really did struggle to make out the dialogue. It didn't help that the main characters were quite often wearing gas masks in that movie. So I don't know if Nolan and his team have been listening to those complaints finally and done something about it, or if it's because this movie is so dialogue driven. It's not a big action blockbuster with loads of, you know, explosions and gunfights and car chases and all that. So they've made sure that the dialogue is a bit clearer, and they seem to have balanced it better. That's not to say that they've sacrificed the kind of high end, the bass and the really loud stuff. The score is fantastic in this. Ludwig Göransson's score is haunting and fits the film perfectly, and there's some great examples of when it's used to rack up the tension, and one scene in particular where it's not used at all, as in there is no sound at all coming through your speakers. and it builds tension and anxiety and dread in a completely different way, and then gives a big satisfying payoff that will blow the roof off your home cinema when it eventually happens. I seen that in the cinema and it gave me proper anxiety, and I thought in my own home it wouldn't be recreated, but it's such an immersive soundtrack coupled with the movie and the visual quality, it happened again even in the home. So if that's not testament to how immersive the home video experience of Oppenheimer is, then I don't know what else is. So no issues at all with the audio on this disc. It's a perfect partner to the video presentation, I think, and like all Nolan's films on disc before, you know what you're getting. It's going to be loud and it's going to give your home theatre a proper workout. So ultimately, can I recommend that you pick up a 4K Blu-ray copy of Oppenheimer? Absolutely. It's more than a recommendation, it's an order. You owe it to yourself. If you're a collector, if you're into movies in any way, shape or form, go out and buy this. I've not even looked at the Blu-ray, if I'm honest. I think it'll also look fantastic. The 4K will have the edge on it, I'm certain of that. It's the same audio track on it, and obviously it's the same 4K digital intermediate downscaled onto the 2K. But for a film that was put together like Oppenheimer, using the absolute finest, the best in the industry, the 70mm IMAX, specially created 65mm film, you know, for those sequences, get it in the best possible format. Don't scrimp on this. It's absolutely worth $24.99 and more. I'm just gutted I didn't get that really nice steelbook, but I'm just so happy to own it. And it's actually kind of sparked a bit of conversation about physical media, as you're probably aware, because Christopher Nolan has said in an interview, I've got a quote here from IGN, I don't know if that's who he gave the interview to or if they're just quoting someone else, but you can see on the screen there, basically he's pleading with people to go out and get it. And you might think that's a little bit self-serving because obviously he'll make some kind of money out of that, but I don't think it is. I think Nolan's got plenty of money, you know, he's loaded, isn't he? He's made God knows how many billions at the box office with the amazing films that he's given us. But he's a purist, that's why he uses film, that's why he pushes IMAX 70mm. This is important to him, movie making, filmmaking is important to him, and he's also concerned about the history of movies. And as we move into the digital age with streaming, it can be taken away. You never own something that you buy digitally. It's always on someone else's server, and they'll ultimately decide when that's no longer available to you, whether you paid money for it or not. However, if you buy something on physical media, not only are you still getting the best possible quality, and okay, yeah, that margin is being decreased all the time with advancements in technology, streaming, quicker internet speeds, all the rest of it, but it's still the best way to watch movies and no one can take it away from you. And for a masterpiece, as it says on the box here, like Oppenheimer, it's one you want to own, it's one you want a physical copy of, so just go out and get one. There will of course be a link in the description for the 4K Blu-ray of Oppenheimer should you want to pick it up for your convenience. But that's it for this review. I really hope you enjoyed it. If you found it useful, please give it a wee like and consider subscribing for more 4K Blu-ray reviews and more light content. My next video on the channel will be an unbox and a kind of brief review of Film Vault's edition of 2001: A Space Odyssey, which is a nice kind of jumping off point here because I think it was actually Christopher Nolan that took to do and overseeing the 4K transfer of 2001. I won't be speaking too much about the transfer on that one, but God, what a visually striking movie that is also. But I've been Andy, the Electric Geek. Take care, and I'll see you in the next video.